Thank you, Cathaoirleach. I welcome the opportunity to contribute to this debate. And I remind Deputy Ryan that this piece of EU regulation came in June 2014 when you were in government. You had 18 months to implement this regulation. You could have implemented it and you could have appointed any authority you wished had you acted in those 18 months. And from 2016 to 2017, when I was and I am currently spokesperson for the party, I have continuously raised this issue. And we were told for 18 solid months that the IAA was going to be appointed. And it was only at the end of 2017 that Minister Ross came and said that it was no longer legally feasible to do this, and he was going to present a new authority, which is Fingal County Council. Minister Ross, you said that you're simply implementing the EU directive, and because of that you're restricted in what you can do. But the one thing that you can do is make the decision who is the competent authority. And yes, I have huge reservations about Fingal County Council. I have said that I believe it's out of sync with what other European countries is doing. You have failed to share any of the Attorney General's advice. You have failed to share any of the legal advice that you've got. But I have worked for the last number of months in committee with your officials and indeed with yourself to try and improve this bill, to try and ensure that there would be independence in this bill. And that's why we put forward the amendment in relation to a director of the competent authority on a parity with the CEO. Now, Minister, you said that that's not workable and that if we pushed that, the bill would fall. But I believe, and I want you to contradict me, that the reason you can't do that is because the civil servants are looking after themselves. They don't want to change the status quo of local government, and that's the only reason that they're not willing to accept the amendment that we put forward. But let's be honest, there is an urgent need for this legislation. The directive was put in place in 2014, it's now 2019. We need an authority in place to give certainty to the residents, but not only to the residents, but also to the DAA. And when you listen to some of the previous speakers, they say that, you know, just because there's because rates are played, they're compromised. If that was the case, well then every local authority would be compromised in every decision they ever made. They would grant planning permissions willy-nilly to benefit from development levies, to benefit from commercial rates. And we're not saying that. Deputy Coppinger used an example about Éireann, and then she's saying there was nothing wrong with that decision. So one would wonder why you use an example and then say there was nothing wrong with that decision. But what I want to know from the Minister is, what concrete actions are you taking to ensure that there is independence in what you're proposing? Page 2 of the directive says, Member States should ensure that information is reliable, that it is obtained in a transparent manner, and that it is accessible to the competent authorities and stakeholders. And competent authorities should put in place necessary monitoring tools. What measures are going to be given to ensure that we do have openness and transparency for all stakeholders? If we look at Fingal in comparison to the EPA and CAR that has been suggested, Fingal is subject to an appeals process to An Bord Pleanála and a judicial review. So if they're not happy with a decision, it can go to An Bord Pleanála. They do have a much broader mandate than either CAR or the EPA do. They do currently have powers in relation to the Environmental Act 2006. Those powers are not being utilised fully, and I want to know what is going to be done to ensure that those powers are utilised fully. I want to know what is going to be done to ensure that Fingal County Council is adequately resourced and has the necessary competent staff in place to ensure that the concerns of the residents are taken on board and are dealt with in an open and a transparent manner. When colleagues talk about CAR being this great body that's going to be able to do it, they fail to acknowledge that CAR is only 20 staff at the moment, and they too are going to have to recruit, similarly to Fingal, to beef up their competencies and capabilities to do this work. Currently what CAR are doing are simply regulating if somebody misses an airline, or if an airline is on strike, or if they're looking for reimbursement, CAR will look after that, plus to set the rates for the airport. So I don't believe they have the necessary capabilities either. They, if they were selected, were going to have to be beefed up. And who would be the appeal process that if either the DAA or the residents weren't going to happy with the decision of CAR, who would be the appeals process be to? Probably the on-board Penala. So, Minister, if we're to go back to the drawing board, as some people are suggesting, what we're looking at is prolonging this for a further 12 months, because it has taken 12 months to get to here. Prolonging this for a further 12 months, which is ultimately going to result in any decision that's been taken being adjudicated on by on-board Penala. A body which, to be fair, have been more than favourable to the residents in the area in the past. Dublin Airport is a key piece of national infrastructure. It supports directly and indirectly 117,000 jobs, and nobody is talking about those jobs. Nobody is talking about the people that rely on the airport for their work, for their livelihood, and how we as a country rely on the airport for connectivity and the economic driver that it is. So, Minister, I've asked you some very direct questions in relation to how you are going to ensure openness, transparency, robustness, and ensure that the necessary staff have the competencies and capabilities to ensure that this is going to be dealt with in an open, transparent manner that the stakeholders who acknowledge don't have confidence in this procedure at the moment, but that hopefully we can build their confidence. And I have spoken to residents too, and some residents have said to me they don't care who the competent authority is, because they have their own grievances in relation to how they're dealing with the DAA and the buyout, and what they would like to see is an acceleration of that process so they can relocate and get away from the noise and the infliction that the airport has on their residents.